When it comes to first-person shooter games, you can never really have enough guns. Okay, look, there's probably a limit out there, but BattleBit is a long ways away from hitting that limit. And thankfully, we now have a good idea of what guns are set to come to the game very soon. G'day there once again viewers, your mate Kamikaze78 here, and today we have some leaked upcoming weapons to go over for BattleBit Remastered. So folks, a cheeky Reddit thread popped up on the r/BattleBit subreddit today, which talks to there being a mention of 14 unreleased weapons in the in-game files. Those weapons are the 5.7, the AN-94, the AUG HBAR, the CBJ-MS, the F2000, the G3, the M60, the M93R, the MG3 and MG5, the MK47 Mutant, the MPX, the QJY-201, and the RPK-16. Now, while I'm typically not one to report on leaks, given that they are more often than not based on very loosey-goosey information that's hard to authenticate, the references to these new weapons come in the form of Twitch drop camouflages that are located in the in-game files, which indicates to me that the weapons in question have been modeled with the intent of release and with the intent of generating additional Twitch drop content. So I think it's safe to say that these weapons are in fact coming to the game very soon. So I thought it would be fun for us to go through them all, share some details about what they are in the real world, and how I feel they're going to slot into the game's armory against some of the other options that already exist. But before we get into that, I did want to take a quick moment to thank all of you for the immense support for our Starlight Children's Foundation charity campaign over on Twitch so far. On the first day of our 28-day campaign, we managed to raise over 1,800 Australian dollars, which is nothing short of incredible. A great start towards reaching our 10,000 Australian dollar goal. If you missed our announcement video regarding our charity campaign, I've left it linked in the card above, but I've also left my Twitch linked down below as well, should you guys want to stop on by and support us during this campaign as well. Cheers again guys, it really does mean the world that we've got so much traction this early on. But alright, with that said and done, let's dive into the leak a little further and go down the list of weapons here. Starting off with the assault rifles in the leak, we actually had a pretty good idea that all of these weapons were going to be coming to the game based on previous promotional content for BattleBit, but it's good to see their confirmation regardless. Firstly, we have the FN2000 Bullpup Assault Rifle, a weapon that I must admit have always enjoyed seeing in the games that it does appear in, thanks to its incredibly unique design and physical presence. The FN2000 is a bullpup assault rifle that is loaded in 5.56 by 45mm NATO rounds and is used by special forces in numerous countries. Historically, throughout its integration into first-person shooter games, it typically sports a nutty fire rate and is more geared towards CQC arenas. I have a feeling that in BattleBit, it's likely to follow a somewhat similar approach, making it a sort of a SMG take on the assault rifle category that may even go as far as to offer some improved mobility as a result of its rather small profile by comparison to other assault rifles. I have a feeling though that depending on how good it is upon launch, that the F2000 may completely power creep the FAMAS out of the equation, so we'll see what happens there in the future. Next up, we have the AN-94 assault rifle. This Russian 5.45 by 39mm Fed piece of machinery also has been featured in first-person shooter games for a very long time now, so it's got quite the reputation behind it. However, that reputation very much comes from the AN-94's very unique trick, one of which will often leave it feeling quite powerful or less so in first-person shooter games. The AN-94 sports what is basically called a hyperburst mechanic, which fires a 2-round burst at an accelerated rate of fire while also mitigating the recoil on the first 2 shots by delaying when the recoil is felt by the shooter. And this is a mechanic that has often been replicated in first-person shooter games over the years, which again has either produced some incredibly busted implementations of the AN-94 in games or some incredibly weak ones. I have a feeling that we could actually be looking at BattleBit's first ever burst fire only assault rifle, or even a new challenger to the king of mid-range engagements here, depending on how well that hyperburst mechanic is implemented. Only time will tell, but I'm very excited to see this gun come to the game. Moving on, the G3 and the MK47 could honestly find themselves being added to either the DMR or the assault rifle category, depending on how the developers want to approach it. The G3 is another one of those weapons that we pretty quickly worked out would be coming to the game based on previous material, but it's nice to see it here in the file as a confirmation. The G3 is developed by Heckler & Koch, firing a 7.62 by 51mm ammunition, and has typically hit like an absolute truck in all of the previous games that it's appeared in. Sometimes it has featured a a full auto firing mode. At other times, it's been a semi-automatic weapon only. So I'm curious to see how the developers in BattleBit choose to implement the weapon here. If it does come to the game as a DMR, it may share the space of the M14 HBAR as a full auto weapon in the DMR category, maybe even sporting a heavier hitting damage profile. We'll see. The MK47, also known as the Mutant, is an American-made semi-automatic weapon that is chambered in 7.62x39, and from a gaming perspective, I've only ever seen this gun featured in PUBG in the past, so my experience and understanding of it is quite minimal, to be honest. However, with the chambering size and the real-life fire rate sitting at 650 rounds per minute, I've got a feeling that we're about to see yet another heavy-hitting weapon come to the game. Honestly, this is one of those weapons that's a bit of a mystery to me, and I really don't quite know yet what it's going to look like in the context of the wider arsenal. If you yourself have any ideas about the weapons that we're covering today, or of the MK47 in particular, leave them in the comment section down below, guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But alright, shifting down a couple of gears here and moving on to the smaller side of things, we have the MPX and the CBJ-MS submachine gun / PDWs here as well in the files. Now, the SIG MPX is a newish SMG chambered in 9x19mm and sports an incredibly compact platform that is really effective for those close quarters environments. The version as per photographed in the game files appears to be the 8-inch barrel, which sports an 850 rounds per minute fire rate in the real world. So personally, I predict that the MPX will sit as the middle ground between the likes of the MP5 and the MP7 in the game. A nice mix of aggression while also sporting a touch of stability for extending out to longer range firefights. Hell, maybe it'll even take the niche of having a higher muzzle velocity for the category, who knows. The CBJ-MS is next here, which is a Swedish PDW that to my knowledge has featured very rarely in games in the past. I think the last time we saw it in a game was way back in Battlefield 4. So yeah, quite a while ago. This PDW is typically loaded in 6.5 by 25mm CBJ rounds, but can also be barrel changed out to take 9 by 19mm Parabellum rounds as well. Either way, it's an incredibly compact submachine gun with a very short barrel length and the capacity to equip a drum magazine. So, I think we're about to see another competitor to the PP2000 on our hands here in the game. The PP2000 with its extended magazine capacity definitely gives it that sort of, slightly bigger machine pistol caricature, which given the CBJ-MS's design, I feel like we're going to see it perform in a really similar way. If I were to have my guess, especially noting the CBJ-MS's integrated forward grip, I expect that we'll see a more accurate PP2000 here with a slower rate of fire that gives players a highly mobile, yet relatively weaker platform to use all things considered. But that of course is just a guess. But alright folks, for a lot of support players in the game, this is what you've been waiting for. There are a total of 6 weapons in the list here that are expected to be coming to your class in particular, which is going to lead to a massive breath of fresh air for the support class and really flesh it out as a result. And look, while I may not be a support player a whole lot right now, some of the weapons that are coming to the class as per this leak may very well convert me in a heartbeat, folks. Let's take a moment to start off with my 2 favorites that are on the list here, the M60 and the MG3. The M60, also known as the Pig, is an iconic United States light machine gun that was predominantly used in the Vietnam War. Its incredibly unique shape and design makes it recognizable at a glance to anyone who has seen this thing before, and with it being chambered in 7.62 by 51mm NATO rounds, this is very easily going to be the heaviest hitting light machine gun in the arsenal to date, at least at the time of this leak. And I will be honest folks, the prospect of having a 100 round magazine that could realistically match the damage output of the likes of the AK-15 or the FAL, yeah, that's a thought that makes me weak at the knees. Sign me up, please and thank you, I'll take 2. It's been a long time since we've seen a modern first-person shooter game include the M60 into its armory, and finally to see it make a return makes me one happy camper. And I know that many will be in the same boat as myself. Which leads us on to the MG3. The infamous, almost iconic German machine gun. Born and bred from the fires of World War II and its predecessor, the MG42, this absolute cannon is known to vomit 7.62 by 51 NATO rounds down the range at blistering speeds of up to 1200 rounds per minute. And every game that has featured it to this date that I know of has made it an absolute beast to contend with. I particularly remember this weapon from the Battlefield Bad Company 2 days, and it was without question one of my favorite favorite weapons in the game at that time for the meta class. When it comes to BattleBit, I see the LMG coming to the game as the fastest firing bullet vomit weapon in the category, and while bipod gameplay in BattleBit feels incredibly clunky and somewhat useless for light machine guns at the moment, there's also no denying that part of me wants to just set up on the Wakistan bridge with this thing, ready to cut down an entire zerg of rushing enemies real quickly. I tell you what, bring on that MG3, guys. We've also got what appears to be another couple of large capacity box style mag LMGs on their way to the game as well, in the form of the MG5 and the QJY-201. The Heckler & Koch MG5 is yet another machine gun chambered in 7.62x51, so featuring a slightly heftier round against some of the other MGs that we are seeing in the game currently. This is yet another weapon that I don't really know a whole lot about and haven't really used in many games to this date, so I'm really in the dark about what to expect from this weapon platform when it comes time to release. And the same can also be said for the QJY-201, which is a Chinese machine gun also chambered in 7.62x51. Once again, I know very little about this weapon, and I don't think I've ever seen it in a game full stop to this date, so this will be another one of those fresh and new surprises for us to check out in due time. Now, we've also got a couple of light support weapons coming to the game as per this leak as well, that I know some of you are going to be very happy to hear about, the RPK-16 and the AUG HBAR. The RPK-16 is a relatively new rendition of the RPK platform, being chambered in a smaller 5.45x39mm round. Nonetheless, it's going to be good to see another potentially quote-unquote heavier hitting light support weapon come to the game alongside the likes of the MG36. If I were to put my money on anything, I would say that this weapon is going to play very similarly to that of the AK-74, just with larger magazine options, but that will come in due time. The AUG HBAR is also an exciting prospect for the support class as well, and is basically a bigger version of the AUG A3 assault rifle. By sporting that heavier barrel for more controllable fire under longer bursts, I have a feeling that the AUG HBAR is simply going to be the AUG A3, but bigger in the game, which means that by virtue, the support class may end up getting an extremely accurate weapon platform that sacrifices that straight up damage output for laser beam accuracy for mid to long range firefights, which is going to be very cool to see from a weapon variety perspective. And no folks, I've not forgotten about the two sidearms that are also here in the game. We're firstly getting the 5.7 pistol, which if my understanding is correct, and trust me it's very limited when it comes to real world weapon knowledge, my understanding is that the 5.7 traditionally carries an improved armor penetration in the real world. So it could very well be the case that the 5.7 ends up being the heaviest damaging pistol in the non-heavy pistol category. We'll have to wait and see. And the M93R is a weapon that I'm sure most of us are very familiar with from the Battlefield franchise, but this now is going to be the first burst fire pistol we see come to the game, which to my mind is a very exciting prospect and adds some much needed, variety to the quote-unquote automatic pistol category of the game. So folks, there you have it. That is the long list of weaponry that was identified in a recent leak of the game's files. And it's safe to say, guys, I am very excited to see these weapons start rolling out to the game in due time. Larry on the Reddit was even cheeky enough to reveal that there are many more weapons beyond this that are also in a close to ready state. So BattleBit Remastered's armory is about to get a whole lot bigger, and I've got a feeling it's about to get a whole lot bigger very quickly. If you guys found yourself enjoying today's video, a backhanding of the like button does go a long way to supporting the channel, and if you're new here, consider subscribing whilst you're at it, guys, to stay up to date with all future video releases. As we said before, guys, please check out our Twitch link in the description down below to come check out our streams, especially for our charity campaign. It would mean the world. But once again, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Peace out, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Take care, guys. Have a good one.